The next item on the agenda, 27R, is for the purchase approval of the Bell Textron Bell 505 helicopter. As the city continues to grow, additional resources are needed in the public safety area to better serve the citizens and improve response times for both the police department and the fire and medical department. Thanks to funding provided from the state of Arizona, we are able to add an important resource to the city's arsenal of public safety tools. Deputy City Manager Travis Cutright will present the purchase of a helicopter for your approval. Joining Travis are Jeff Wajner from C.E. Wilson Consulting and Rudy Barrias from Aviation Consulting Services, who assisted the city with this landmark acquisition. Travis.
Thank you, City Manager Darwin. Good evening, Mayor, and Council. This is an exciting day for public safety, and another step toward keeping the men and women of the police, the Peoria Police Department, and the men and women of the Peoria Fire and Medical safe, as well as the citizens of our community that we're here to serve. So we're going to talk about the aviation program because this is the aviation unit. So this is not simply a purchase of a helicopter, but a well thought out program. And I'd like for Rudy to introduce his background. He's a subject matter expert that we've been leaning on, and then Jeff can introduce himself also and his background, if you don't mind.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Rudy Barrias. I'm a commercial pilot, rotorcraft pilot. I've been assistant watch commander at the Los Angeles Police Department for 12 years. In the aviation unit, I'm a 27-year veteran of the Los Angeles Police Department. I have 5,000 hours in my position and a flight time, which qualifies me as a master pilot. And I have assisted in the purchase of helicopters for the city of Los Angeles, and I have done training for the city of Los Angeles, Columbia National Police Department, and Connecticut State Troopers and various other organizations.
Thank you, Rudy.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Wajner, and I am a project manager, as City Manager Darwin mentioned, with C.E. Wilson Consulting. I have been managing projects in the public safety sector now for the past 4.5 years, mostly with the Mesa Police Department, now proudly serving the Peoria Police Department on this aviation unit, implementing this aviation unit.
I just want to take that moment because it's important to understand the resources that's kind of gone into getting us to this point where we're at today. And so, as I mentioned, we're here to talk about, one, the purchase of a helicopter, but more importantly, the establishment of an aviation unit. And so, as you can see here, this aviation unit is going to be deployed in several phases. The first phase is the planned delivery of this Bell 505 helicopter, should Mayor and Council approve this evening. We've, during the last council meeting, approved the hangar that will not only house this helicopter, but have office space for staff and other uses. So in phase one, we're looking to have the aviation unit staffed 40 hours a week with about 5 to 10 hours of flight time as we stand this unit up. And so the missions in phase one would be one, preservation of life, and that's consistent across all phases and the reason for the establishment of this unit. So aerial reconnaissance, assisted ground unit, and search and recovery would be phase one. And so then we ramp up to phase two, again, staff 40 hours. And so we would ramp up our flight hours to 10 to 20 hours per week, and then and add additional missions such as directed air support, high profile events, SWAT assistance, missing residents, pursuits if necessary, and firefighting. And then phase three, we ramp up again to 20-hour flight hours, or 20 flight hours, I'm sorry, and add search and rescue. So phase one is search and recovery. So we direct fire up to the person that we would be, that's in need. And so they'd be on foot going up and doing what they need to do and do the recovery. And so search and rescue, that's when we're more advanced in the deployment, and we'll be doing possibly skid rescues. I'm looking over at the chief, and he'll chime in here as needed. So we'll be doing single skid extractions, phase 3. And so then we're going to be fully operational at that point, and again, staff 40 hours and looking at 20 flight hours and running all missions. So when we started this journey, the plan was to contract a pilot, and then we discovered that we have Sergeant Wolf sitting back here that was an Army pilot, and he graciously has agreed to help us get this unit off the ground. Yeah. Yes, no pun. Thank you, Henry. Maybe I'll go on to stand up. So, and then we looked at a contract mechanic, and we discovered that we have Officer Burrow, who was with NYPD, and he was the chief mechanic for NYPD for their air unit, and we're blessed to have them on staff right now. We also discovered that our fire is already trained on air rescue technicians, the ART. You want to talk a little bit about what that is?
Sure. We've had technical rescue technicians in the city for over 30 years, and part of the initial training for TRT members is helicopter operations. So we've been operating off helicopters for quite some time. We do have air rescue technicians ready to go to train on this helicopter, and I think it'll go pretty quick to get up to speed. We're really looking forward to this opportunity. We're real excited about it.
And Chief Intrieri, you know, talk about your experience at Mesa, and you can speak to the TFOs, the Tactical Flight Officer, and you had some creative ideas on how to approach the TFOs.
Sure. Mayor Beck, members of the council, good evening. As you know, 28 days ago, I was sworn in here, so I am somewhat new, and I appreciate the opportunity. My time with the Mesa Police Department was a little over 28 years. I started in 1995. During my entire employment with the city of Mesa, there was an active air unit. In 94, Mesa PD employed 2 helicopters, and then about 10 years later added a 3rd. So I've had the opportunity to experience the value and benefit of having that type of support for police operations specifically. And one of the probably most glaring benefits that I've experienced personally was the resource being of value to the preservation of life. And I say that from the standpoint of we are asked to protect and serve, and that's exactly what that air unit was enabled us to do on countless occasions where we would have missing members of the community, whether it be aging or elderly members with dementia, afflicted with directional travel on foot. The air unit was able to successfully locate them at times when our search yielded no results, our exhaustive search yielded no results, only to find that they were slightly off the path of our grid. And were identified and located because of some of the equipment that this helicopter will be outfitted with, being able to pick up heat signals, et cetera. In addition to that, when we talk about preservation of life, I noticed on the slide it talked about vehicle pursuits. So we do not get involved in vehicle pursuits very often. It's a very rare occasion. But at the Mesa Police Department, the pursuit policy is very restrictive, and it should be because of the risk that is inherent to people traveling on the roadway. When vehicles are fleeing and are traveling at high rates of speed, and it's unpredictable in terms of their behaviors of the drivers, officers can back off and let the air unit up in the sky direct units on the ground from afar, and do so in a safer manner, so to ensure that there's less of a risk to the public at large. In regards to the tactical flight officers, it's important that we have officers sitting aside the pilots that are familiar with the streets and the roadways. In doing so, my suggestion would be for us to have a very fluid model, which allows for us to have part-time TFOs, if you will, that enables us to almost force multiply the effectiveness of having members of our department work a primary responsibility, whether it be investigations, patrol, function, training, et cetera, and then being able to work one shift or two shifts on a week or 2 weeks to help offset the need and support the air unit's mission overall in terms of assisting both fire and PD.
Thank you, Chief. And so we as you look at the staffing, as we move toward fully operational, we would, in phase 2, add an additional pilot, and then in phase 3, we would add a third pilot. And so the idea is to have 3 pilots by the time we're fully operational. The TFOs are +2s, but with Chief's idea, those are not necessarily net new bodies. It's training officers that we have today. And so, so in this model, we've got 2 net new FTEs. We have a pilot here, and we're looking at training or onboarding, probably onboarding 2 additional pilots by the time we get to fiscal year 27, 28. So this is the item that's before you today, Council, and if you'll recall, during the budget process, the mayor was able to secure $17.6 million in state funding, $3.5 million of which is earmarked for the helicopter. So it's a state funding. As you can see, this helicopter, fully equipped, is $3.34 million approximately. This helicopter, the Bell 505, we put out an RFP. We had 4 responses. This one fit our mission the best. This was the one that would be up in the air the longest. The others were about 2 hours mission time. This is 4 hours because of the size of the fuel tank. It's equipped with, will be equipped with a cargo hook, Bambi bucket, so that we can do water drops in rough terrain, you know, up in areas that our first responders can't necessarily get to easily. And Gary, I don't know if you want to talk to that also.
For the rescues up north?
Well, the firefighting.
Oh, wildland firefighting. Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. We do have those around here every now and again. Over the years, we've had some quite large fires in North Peoria up by the lake and stuff like that. So this unit would provide some bucket drops and stop the forward progress of the fire. And some people think that puts the fire out, and it really does. It just slows the fire down for us a little bit so we can get boots on the ground around to kind of catch the edge of that fire so it doesn't continue down the road and stuff. So it buys us some time on the ground, and then it's also used for aerial recon so we can get a trained firefighter, subject matter expert in the helicopter with eyes on the fire to tell us where it's going, if there's any structures ahead of the fire that are threatened or any valuable resources, could be power lines, could be well sites, whatever it is. But that allows us to get up and then send that back to the command, and they can send resources to protect that stuff. So used extensively in wildland firefighting, especially on the bigger fires, for sure.
Thank you, Chief. So this is a 5-passenger aircraft. I won't hit on all these safety features, but this FADEC, as Rudy can explain to you, this is a piece of equipment that some of the other aircraft weren't equipped with, and this prevents over-torquing of the engine, which would cause engine failure. And it's equipped with autopilot, and then we've got our mission equipment, so the searchlight, cameras, and Rudy will tell you that these are high-definition cameras, the newer technology that can identify tattoos, down to tattoos on subjects on the ground, and so this helicopter is going to also have a downlink that's going to feed back to the real-time crime center. So this is an integrated asset to the other assets that we're bringing online here at the City of Peoria. So this is the hangar that was approved. As you can see, the top floor will be office space for some police staff for 2 to 3 years. The lower floor will be a mechanic and parts, and then we've got an office for fire, and we've got a pilot's office and then a lobby. So in the middle is just equipment that we'll need to equip the hangar with. Had some questions about the operating cost, and so clearly when you invest in a tool like this, it comes with operating costs, and so phase one, the consumables and parts, because we're ramping up, will be around estimated at $250,000. Hangar fees, $99,000 a year, and I put discounts available. What we have the option of doing here, because of the way we negotiated the lease, is to pay in advance, and if we pay a year or two in advance, we can get up to 7% discount off the lease rate. And so because the helicopter is coming in below the $3.5 million, the delta of that we're gonna put toward hangar fees. So we need liability insurance. Fuel cost is estimated at $58,000 a year. Phase two, the fuel cost increase because the missions will increase and the flight times will increase, and so operating costs for phase one is around $447,000, and it moves up to around $500,000 phase two, and that's because of the parts. You wonder why phase three is lower than phase two, is because the consumables are going down because we've established inventory. With that, we're open to questions that you might have.
Councilor Finn.
First in line. I was quick with that button, wasn't I? Nice. I have a number of questions, so I apologize in advance. First of all, I want to reiterate, this is being paid for by a grant from the state. We're not paying for this helicopter. I'll start with that and just maybe reiterate that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I have a lot of questions, but let me just start with the one that I think is probably on most people's mind, which is really, why don't we just continue to call out MCSO or whoever it is to come out and support us? Do we really have that much crime and that many different things that we need to get this aircraft up in the air to support the city? Because I think that's really kind of the question that's on people's minds. I'm just going to start with that bomb to ask.
Great question, Mayor Beck, Councilmember Finn, and so I'll kick it off and then I'll hand it off. But one thing to understand is MCSO, DPS, and the City of Phoenix, they have their own priorities, and so if we call them, there's no guarantee, and it's a crapshoot actually, whether or not they can respond to us, because their first priority is taking care of their city, their other calls that are priorities for them, and so the City of Peoria is lower down on that, and so the response time is very delayed, or maybe there's no response time, and I'll kick it over to the police chief here, and he can respond also.
Sure. So, Mayor, Councilmember Finn, Crime picture is relatively low in regards to, in respect to some of the other entities that we're surrounded by, no doubt. But again, I wouldn't look at this as simply a resource for crime fighting. Certainly has its advantages and benefits when it's up in the air and there are situations that have come about. But for me, primarily, as you know, as I've stated before, it's a preservation of life tool. There are many situations that we are involved in that are not crime-driven. Specifically, when we talk about missing persons, when we talk about vehicle collisions, which we do have fairly regularly. When we have a major intersection involves motor vehicle collision, there's a lot of resources that go into responding to that and to ensuring that there aren't additional collisions resulting due to the conflict and the traffic flow, et cetera. The air unit will be able to assist with that. In support of fire operations, when, say, for example, we have a structure fire or the fire department's responding to a scene, the air unit will be able to guide police units in to assist fire with ensuring that the fire apparatus is not being compromised by cross-traffic, cross-flow, et cetera. But then on the bigger scale of things, as we progress and start moving forward, we have, in regards to crime, we have those types of incidents that do occur. And, you know, within our profession, we say crime knows no boundaries. So there can be an incident that occurs in one city and moves into ours or vice versa. And this will enable us to have a very timely response to dealing with that while coordinating with our regional partners.
I'd like to also add, as we were, as project manager, Warner will tell you, as we were researching, we asked the question to Mesa, you know, what was the value of their air unit, and one of the first things they said was, we're a city that's 144 square miles, and to traverse 144 square miles, you can't do that quickly. And so to that, I would say the city of Peoria is 187 square miles, and you can't traverse 187 square miles quickly, and if something's going on in the mountains, on the trail, behind the mountains, we're not going to be able to respond that quickly, and to think that Maricopa County is hanging out waiting for us to call, they're not. You know, they've got other things going on. The city of Phoenix has other things going on, so we may or may not have air support. So when's the right time to start a unit like this? You know, we don't have an asset in the West Valley. We don't, there's no aviation unit in the West Valley. And so there are a lot of agencies that are hoping that we can pull this off because they want to do IGAs. With just today, we had a conversation with the city of Glendale wanting us to, should this be approved tonight, provide air support for their major events. So that's one IGA, right? And spoke to Buckeye. They're interested. City of Avondale, those IGAs help offset the operating cost for this unit as well, and so I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, that's fair, and I appreciate that. I especially appreciate kind of explaining how it helps outside of police work, right? That there are many things that we could use that for. I think there is a notion out there, I don't know if it's correct or not, I'm going to ask the question, that when we call MCSO or we call another city and they come out and they support us in that air operation, that's free to us. Is that accurate?
We're not being billed for any support from any of the agencies that respond to us. However, and Chief mentioned in talking to his staff that a lot of times the staff has just stopped calling because of the delay in getting somebody to respond or not having a response. So a lot of times they don't call for air support, which puts an officer at risk and it puts a firefighter at risk.
Another good segue to a point that I wanted to make, or at least make the statement. I couldn't possibly put a price on our officer safety, our fire department, you know, members of those departments, their safety. So I never want this to come across as I'm putting a price on it, because I don't think I ever possibly could do that. So I want to be really clear about that one. A couple of other questions, if Mayor Beck will allow me to continue. I'm on a roll.
You're already there.
Yeah, I know. So Sergeant Wolf, first of all, thank you for your service, sir, with the Army. Appreciate that. But you do look human to me, which means that he cannot be available to fly all the time. So I'm curious how it works. I also don't think you want to be on call like, 24/7, 365, right? I would think. So I'm assuming that if he is not available to come out and respond, it's just business as usual and we would call MCSO. Really nothing would change at that particular point if he is not available. Is there an anticipated, if he is available, is there an anticipated timeline that he would be able to get into the helicopter and get it in the air? Is there sort of a standard anywhere on that?
So my response to that, and then I'll hand it over to Chief Intrieri, is the hangar is staffed. That's why we took down that hangar, is because it has office space there. And so our pilot, whether it's Sergeant Wolf or another pilot, will be there.
Okay.
At the hangar. And so to the extent that we need to launch, they're available to launch. And that's the other great thing about this Bell is you don't need to warm up the engines. You just turn the key and go, right? Yeah.
Okay. Maybe one other one, but who makes the authorization for this to go up? Is that going to be a police department thing? Who's the decision maker on when this thing can get in the air and why it gets in the air?
Mayor,
These two guys.
Councilmember Finn, from an operations standpoint, that is going to be a directive given on behalf of myself and the police department for police operations to the staff that are manned with managing the resource. So the 40 hours that we've selected throughout the work week for them to be operational, that's exactly what it is. It's for them to be operational, and then they're going to have to determine whether or not they go up on a certain call based on the needs, the prerequisites that we establish for the sergeants and the lieutenants that are on the street, based on a needs basis, based on a risk assessment to life, property, et cetera. So that's something that will be worked into their SOPs so they understand what their protocols are moving forward. And the 40 hours we identify for operations will be based on data in terms of the call volume, the anticipated types of calls for service that are going to be occurring throughout the 168 hours of each week.
Yep.
We'll identify what 40 hours are for us to be most impactful
Okay.
for deployment.
Yeah, Chief Bernard, you've got some thoughts on if it's needed for fire operations, then maybe you can talk to
Sure.
your vision there.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor, Councilmember Finn. We're still working those things out as part of the process for the first year, second year as we get fully operational, but I would envision it as a battalion chief on scene of a bigger call. We have radio communications with Peoria PD rating the rig, and if they needed that asset, they would call and have it dispatched from them. But those are things we're still working out.
Okay. All right, I think I have one final question, and this is probably for this gentleman here. Do helicopters go through the, like, A, B, C, D checks like commercial aircraft go?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll probably, what is the flight time to get to a D check, block, or flight hours?
For me?
Well, no, there should be a standard amount of flight hours before, when it goes into an A check, a B check, a C check, and a D check.
Yeah, so as far as you're asking it from, when I jump into the aircraft and I start it?
No, maintenance standpoint.
Or the maintenance, so every, Edgar, Edgar would be the best person to answer
Okay,
that?
all right.
Come on.
You volunteered.
I think he technically got voluntold, but.
So, good evening. My name is Officer Edgar Burrows. As the gentleman mentioned, I am retired. I'm a retired sergeant from the NYPD Aviation Unit, and I've been a mechanic for over 20 years. So to answer your question, each helicopter, each manufacturer has their own inspection criteria.
Okay.
On this one particular, a D-check would be at 3,000 hours. So that's
So-
major. That's like your major inspection.
Yep, tear it all down. So that's like, we're about 4 years from
4
probably a
years
D
out.
check, if I did my math correctly. Okay, and then where does, this might be for you, where would recurrent training in a sim take place? I'm going to get the whole crowd up here. Everybody's coming up.
Get the assistant fire chiefs up also if you'd like that.
Bring them up.
So the initial training would take place at Bell. Bell does a 4-hour transition course. We would send pilots to that every 2 years to go to that for recurrence. And then for onboard or for the daily operations, every 3 months, each pilot would go through a check ride for proficiency and consistency.
Now I'm curious, who does the check ride?
We're still working that part of it out. There's potential to have a CFI or send somebody to CFI training. We can also contract for CFI.
Certified, it's CFI, Certified Flight Instructor.
Just watching the whispering, it's killing me.
The CFI is the certified flight instructor.
Okay,
So
okay.
we would either, we have some resources. Bell actually has a certified, Bell training facility is in Scottsdale for this helicopter, or we could train a CFI in-house. And then once we had our own, some of the training could be done by a PIC or a pilot and commander IP, depending on what we're doing, whether that's pilot training or TFO training. So there would be some emergency operations training for the TFOs as well.
Okay, and obviously all of those checks are all built into the cost estimates for the maintenance?
Yeah, so
Correct.
that would be
Okay.
just built into what the DCM gave you as far as the hourly cost. It's just cost of the
I got you.
aircraft, your hourly operating cost.
Okay, he's got another secret.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Councilman Finn, as far as like the check rides and the EFT and that training, that could be a workday as well. So it would be during the course of the workday, go up, fire up the aircraft, do your EFT, do your check ride for about an hour, come back, and then it'll be, you'll check that box for that 3 months, and then you'll move on to your workday. It doesn't have to be contracted out. If the city of Peoria has an IP pilot, an instructor pilot that's certified, certified flight instructor in rotorcraft, that will be done that way. So you're saving money in that sense. You're doing it in-house.
Okay. Okay, I appreciate all of the answers. Both officers, I appreciate you stepping up and helping prop this up as well. So this is kind of new for us, and it's a lot of ongoing costs, so new and kind of expensive. I just wanted to kind of pressure test it a little bit and make sure that we're thinking all the way through it. And I really don't know anything about helicopters, to be quite honest with you. Got a little aviation background, but I just want to make sure that we're really thinking through this before we take this on. So I appreciate your candid answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Finn, and that's why we onboarded a professional project manager to help guide us through this, and also onboard a subject matter expert in Rudy.
Councilor Schaefer?
Thank you, Mayor. Great thing about my colleague asking a lot of questions, I'm over here crossing mine off, so thank you, Councilman Finn. Councilman Finn finished up with operational costs. Travis, can you go back a slide or two to budget? I had one question on that. So I see the budget, but phase 1, phase 2 through fully operational, I don't see like FTEs. So I don't feel like this is all in budget. Is that correct, Travis?
So the staff, you saw our pilot.
Yes, sir.
Here. So the idea is to leverage as much staff that we have on board today and through training as possible. Fully operational, we're looking at net new 2 FTEs, and that would be 2 additional pilots. Now, it's possible that we could identify others within the police or fire department that have flown. I know there's an email that went out within the police department trying to see what other skill sets we have available. So that was not left off because we were trying to hide the cost. It was not included because we have staff on board right now that can fill those gaps.
No, and thank you for clarifying it. I guess when I look at operational costs at 447 phase 1 and then 498 phase 2 and then obviously out, to me, I don't see a full operational cost. And to Councilman Finn's point, yes, it is paid through for a budget or through the through the funding, the grant funding, but I see operational costs, and I'd like to see the full numbers, because I feel like we're looking at additional FTEs through phase 2, phase 3, and fully operational. Is that a safe assessment?
Net 1 in phase 2 and net 1 in phase 3, yes.
And that includes maintenance and any other staff or
Correct.
crew or anything?
The beauty of the hangar that we leased 2 doors down from our hangar is a certified Bell maintenance shop. And so they, when we went over and visited, was it last week, Chief, they said they could roll their toolbox over to us and do maintenance on the aircraft if we chose to go that route.
And additional questions here, is there training costs as we expand the operations of the air unit through phase 2, phase 3, and fully operational? Is there additional training costs? And then on top of that, is there additional capital costs? Like, is there additional cameras, communications, lights, anything like that?
So the training cost was on that gray bar on the bottom, and I replaced it to sum up all the costs. So if you look at the cost, the costs above them don't add up to that number because the training cost was in the last box. I included the training cost in the number on the bottom.
Okay. The total operating cost is included in?
Training.
Training
Yes.
includes that in the different phases. What about capital equipment going forward as we expand operations over the different phases?
Excuse me, what's the?
Yeah, so we talked about, if one of the first slides, it said that the missions of the different phases for the air unit. Keep going back, Travis. Right there, at the very bottom, it has missions, right? And so my question is, as we expand missions through the phases, is there additional capital or is there additional equipment needed for the air unit to be able to do the missions for rescues or anything like that?
So the answer to that, Councilmember Schaefer, is no. The actual cost of this particular helicopter is $1.5 million, and the delta of that would be the mission equipment. And so, so this equipment that's called out here is the equipment that we need fully deployed.
Okay. So you're saying that the 3.3, when you define fully equipped, that means that we can run missions tomorrow to
Yes.
10 years from now, and as we expand those missions and everything,
Well,
right?
technology changes, so when you start talking 10 years from now, we're not gonna be running these same computers 10 years from now, or you may not be driving your same vehicle, right?
Yep.
So-
So there's an opportunity for additional capital costs down the road. Oh, Chief, sorry.
Yeah. Mayor Beck, Councilmember Schaefer. This equipment that it's been outfitted with and is inclusive within the purchase price is the state-of-the-art right now. There will be no expiration of this equipment within the first 5 to 10 years. Potentially down the road, as the aviation unit expands, we will obviously look to improve upon the equipment that we have outfitted, and that will obviously be something that we'll then bring to the council at that point, moving forward, as we would expect to, so.
Great. Thank you.
But
for-
it's got a significant life expectancy.
Great. Thank you, Chief. So it sounds like capital cost is kind of baked in for 5 years.
Correct.
It's the operational cost going forward, and if we go back to the budget slide, that operational cost is still an unknown because there's the staffing component and everything that's missing, right?
Right, so you would add additional staffing
Okay.
onto this.
And
Ma'am, if I may, I would not characterize it as the staffing costs, the costs are unknown. If you'd like us to provide you with the estimates for the additional staffing costs for those 2 additional FTE, we can provide them, but I wouldn't characterize it as they're unknown.
No, totally agree. I'm saying it's unknown on the screen that I'm looking at right now. So
not
if the
presented on
number
the
is
screen.
200, 300,000, then I could do the math and say the annual operational cost is 300,000 or 800,000 or whatever. That's the unknown on the screen. So, just 2 more questions real quick. How many times, over the last 12 months, how many times did we use Phoenix and Sheriff to respond to Peoria with their air units?
Mayor Beck, Councilmember Schaefer, that is somewhat of an anomaly, that number, simply because much of the feedback I got was that they just opted not to request because they knew there would be a significant delay given the time of day, time of evening, et cetera. So many times where it would have been useful or come into application, it wasn't requested because they've been, per several lieutenants, I met with a group of lieutenants that said, yeah, we just don't request it most often unless it's a very, very critical need, and even at that point, there's a hesitation.
Okay.
Because they get told no.
Yeah, Mayor Beck, Councilman Schaefer, I'd have to get that number for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you. And then one last question. I know that we received the grant for the air unit, which is great. Thank you, Mayor. Did we look at any new technology in regards to drones that would not have a significant operational cost going forward? Did we look at any of that, or did we just look at the helicopter for the air unit?
We're looking at all assets, and the drones are actually built into our real-time crime center project. And so the reason that price tag is $2.6 million is because there are drones included in that. And so we want as many assets available to the men and women of police and fire as we can get. And so those are assets that we're looking at for sure, and we will acquire.
Yeah, just to point that out, when we passed the Real-Time Crime Center, when we built the budget, we actually added, we went to Glendale and actually met with their entire program and met with their chief. And we actually added in their drone program into the overall cost when we actually got the grant from the state.
Okay.
So that's how we came up with $2.7 million. So.
My apologies, Mayor.
It all adds up. So,
Travis, Chief, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
thanks. Good questions. Councilor Dunn?
So I actually am probably going to touch on a few of the questions already asked because I wrote this up prior. But the city has hired consultants to evaluate what type of helicopter to purchase. I believe it would make more sense to determine if a helicopter is needed at all. The mayor put the helicopter hangar on consent agenda last council meeting. I requested in writing the day before to have the hangar be pulled for discussion, because we want to know information up here. We don't want to vote blindly. The council was never given information on the hangar in respect to a cost-benefit analysis or an ROI of the helicopter or hangar. I voted no on the consent agenda because I wholeheartedly believe those on council should be able to speak up and get information to disseminate, to their constituents. That information is good information for our taxpayers to have. I was reminded by the mayor how important it is to be present for council meetings when I requested today to call in because of death in my family, a very close family member. So on that note, I will be making my time here tonight count for those I serve. So for the sake of transparency, the cost of the helicopter is approximately $3.3 million, and that's solely for the helicopter. And I do know that the mayor did get funding for it, and that effort is definitely appreciated. Has the money for the helicopter been expended? Has any of the money that we've already put aside for this helicopter, has it already been expended? That was one question.
Mayor Beck, Vice Mayor Dunn, no money has been expended yet because we are waiting for the authorization to approve this contract and move forward with it. At that point, we will be full steam ahead.
Okay. And so up until now, it hadn't been discussed, the ongoing multi-million-dollar annual cost of officer training, fuel, equipment, helicopter maintenance, storage, general upkeep. We're finding a lot of it up tonight. Technology, and we're not experts on this. That's probably not our wheelhouse, most of us. Technologies, as was suggested, drones are available, and they're at a much lower cost, and they have been proven to achieve results. Again, the mutual aid agreement. In mutual aid, we have that in fire, and it seems to work just fine, with other cities coming to each other's aid. So we do have a mutual aid agreement with Phoenix, DPS, and Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, should there be a need for police or rescue operations and services. So with that, I would like to make a motion to move item 27R to a future date in council meeting to properly inform members of council of a cost benefits analysis, an ROI covering all areas of expenses of purchase, own and operate in the city of Peoria. So I'm making a motion to have this addressed at a future date.
I would second that motion to postpone so I could get some of the budget information.
Council, so we're going to walk through this process. So the motion has been from Councilmember Dunn that we move this to a later date. Councilmember Schaefer is on the record as seconding that, even though we haven't asked questions or listened to the public, so I appreciate that from both of you. That's fantastic. And we also have other council members that actually have questions as well, so that's a great motion to actually make in the middle of a process. You're not recognized. So we will, what we are voting on.
Point of order.
What we are voting on.
Point of order.
What we are voting on.
Point of order, attorney.
What we are voting on.
Point of order.
All right, we will take a recess. What we are voting on is the councilwoman's motion to move the vote to the next council meeting. It has been seconded by Councilmember Schaefer. That is what we are voting on. Council complete? Please vote. And it is 2-3. So, no is the answer. So, we are moving forward. So, with that, Councilor Finn, did yours not work? Did your vote not work?
Thought I voted, but I'll try again.
Yeah, we can try it again?
It's going to flash. I voted no.
Okay.
It'll flash up there. I was kind of confused because I
No
only
worries.
saw 5, so maybe that was me.
Vote again, please. Sorry to not count your vote. I apologize. Sorry, it passes 4-2. Thank you. So with that,
Mayor, if I may?
yes.
There has been questions about what has been approved in our budget for the helicopter. With your permission, I'd like to ask Kevin Burke to speak to the budget authority that has been provided by council already for the purchase and operation of this helicopter. If you're so inclined, I'd like to have him make a clarification about what has previously and already been approved by council in terms of budget, and the reason why we have gone out and gone to RFP and are selecting a helicopter under the authority provided to us previously by the budget that was approved by council. So, Kevin, if you could please explain the budget that has already been approved by council for this helicopter and this operation.
Sure. Thank you, Manager Darwin, Mayor, members of council. When we budgeted this last year, you'll remember there was a budget appropriation of $3.5 million. Of that $3.5 million, $2.5 was intended to be one-time money for the purchase of the helicopter, and $1 million is set aside for operating. So the $1 million continues on in years 2, 3, 4, 5, et cetera. It's ongoing. The 2.5 was one-time dollars. Certainly the grant from the state government gave us $3.5 million in one-time dollars, so that replaces that $2.5 million with the $3.5 million. But the $1 million is in our budget as ongoing. So that's the budgeted amount for operations. You can then apply the costs against that.
Councilor Finn.
Well, with all of the excitement, I think I forgot what I was going to ask at some particular point.
It was up here, so I'm good.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think I wanted to ask for a clarification on the, if my memory serves me correctly, clarification on the FTE increase. I think you said 2, is it not 4 at least?
No, so,
Let me explain my thinking. So in 3 years from now, we're going to add 2 FTEs on a pilot, but we also have to replace these 2 fine gentlemen in their positions currently if they move into a role of mechanic and pilot, correct? Or are we not backfilling their positions in normal operations?
we had not discussed backfilling those positions. Those were not, that was not contemplated.
Does that mean does that mean that it was not contemplated because there's not the intent, or you not contemplated because we didn't think about whether or not we're going to do that?
Well, the idea was for Sergeant Wolf to be one of the pilots for the aviation unit, and the intent was for Officer Burrow to run our maintenance program.
Yep, got that.
And so then we would supplement that, so what was contemplated here was supplementing them with 2 additional pilots, a total of 3 pilots, and either training mechanics or leveraging the maintenance facility that's a couple of bays down from us to do maintenance.
Okay. Councilor Patino.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple questions and some comments. Rudy, first of all, thank you for being here, coming in from LA. My question to you is, you're currently a pilot in LAPD, right?
I am, sir.
Okay, and so can you tell me some of the benefits you've experienced with having a helicopter in your city?
Oh, Councilman Patina, Mr. Mayor, it's a force multiplier, sir. You're running single-man units out here in this city, and this city is expanding. It's a large city. If your officer gets in a tactical situation where he needs assistance, that helicopter's going to get there a lot quicker than another single-man unit. So it's a force multiplier. Also, the rotor system itself, it's a distraction. It causes, when criminals hear the rotor system, in 27 years on the job with the city of Los Angeles, that rotor system, you have a helicopter overhead over a popular event, over something that is going to cause a crowd, it creates a source of tranquility. I've seen it over the years. But more importantly, it's the helping of the citizens of Peoria and the assistance of the citizens of Peoria, and like the mayor touched on, as far as people who are lost children, people suffering from dementia that stray away. Time is of the essence. So if you have an aircraft up and looking for that person, time is of the essence. The more we wait, the more that you delay, the further away from home that person's going to get. So it's again, I've said it once, I've said it a million times, it's a force multiplier.
Thank you. I'll admit, Mayor, that when this first came to my attention, I was skeptical about a helicopter. But after talking with Ms. Cutright and some police officers, and my standard question to police officers when I talk with them, or firefighters, is when you hear that dispatch coming over the radio, you're not going to a birthday party or a cookout. You're going to some life-threatening, potentially life-threatening situation. And I think that this helicopter just gives us another tool to make sure that our police officers and our firefighters get to go home at night and spend time with their families. And ironically, on my way to the council meeting tonight, I was driving down Union Hills, and I was at 83rd Avenue, and I happened to glance up and I saw a helicopter. And from 83rd Avenue to the 101 is about a quarter mile, a couple traffic lights in there. And I saw the helicopter circling around, and it made 4 swaths, I'll use that word, and I'm guessing it was probably about a 2.5 mile radius. And I was thinking to myself, how long would it take a police car to go that 2.5 miles? I think it certainly would be very time consuming, and the helicopter made 4 passes in, a couple minutes. So I think that, again, when the suspect is out in a neighborhood, it's not just the police and the fire that are at risk, it's our citizens that are at risk as well. And I think anything that we can do to make that better is better for our city, better for our citizens, better for our police, and better for our firefighters. So the other thing I want to mention is we have a lot of as you go up north, you have open space, you have desert, you have trailheads. You can't get a car up on a mountain. You can't get a car on a trailhead. You can't take a car on the lake, obviously, but yet you have swimmers out there sometimes that they can't find. If you're using that searchlight or it's daytime hours, you're going to be able to cover a lot of that lake and maybe find a swimmer who's potentially going to drown. Or you're going to find somebody who's on the trailhead that may have injured themselves. And like I said, we can't get a car up there, so you get a helicopter close and you find out where this person is, and you send up the one-wheel thing, and you bring them back down to safety. So, frankly, I'm in support of this. So, that's all. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman. I'm going to go to the, do you mind sitting here for just a minute? I'm going to go to the public. We've got 3 speaker requests. Do we have any other speaker requests for 27R at all? Do we have? No? Okay. So I have 3 speaker requests. This is not for questions for any of you up here, so, but this, I'm going to call the speaker. So Ms. Vicki James first.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. It's interesting. My biggest questions are, is our police department fully staffed? I think, Mr. Finn, the question that you were asking was, with Officers Burrows and Sergeant Wolf, are they not going to be doing their current job duties that they're doing now, and they're going to be assigned to the hangar instead? And are we going to backfill the positions that they were doing? Was that, that's how I understood your question to be, Mr. Finn, Councilmember Finn. And
Not
that's what I would like to know as well.
I don't believe I can respond to questions
No,
in
I
this form,
understand,
but
but
yeah.
that's my question as well. Are we fully staffed with fire and police? Is it costing us, taking staff away that we're not backfilling? And again, are we fully staffed? My big issue with the helicopter and the hangar, the hangar irritates me because it was rushed through on a consent agenda. Nobody was able to discuss it. We, the public, weren't able to get questions answered. So if sitting here listening to the discussion going on, it sounds like there's not a lot of answers to be had yet. I'm not against it. I just think that we need to have questions answered that we're not getting answered. Thank you.
Thank you.
He wasn't able to respond, but this is an agenda item. It's not called to the public. Am I right?
It is called to the public. Does the
I mean, at the
Does
end.
the council member wish to respond?
It's on an agenda-sized item.
It is called, does the council member wish to respond?
Council member respectfully look to the attorney and ask her if I can respond. I'd be more than happy to respond. It's an easy question. I can answer it with one single word, maybe 2.
If you wish to respond, you may respond, but you are not required to do so.
Yes, that was my question.
Mr. Hunter Clare?
Honorable Mayor and Council and City Manager Darwin, appreciate you for having us up tonight. My name is Hunter Clare. I represent the firefighter, paramedics, and EMTs here in the Valley with Local 493 of the IFF. I want to start out before I address where we were by thanking all of you for looking into the future and voting for our brothers and sisters in AFME to support us gaining and retaining the most qualified members for the City of Peoria to represent our 6 block letters from here on out. So thank you with that. And moving into that, we stand in support tonight as our firefighters of this movement, not as something that's here today for us, but it's something that's going to be a project moving on and down the road to make us a larger asset usable not only by our citizens and the growth that we have in our city, but the regional partners that we have here on the west side, where we know there are many outdoor open areas that we are forced to use this in. And as we continue to grow with what you all are looking at, is we tend to be reactionary. Unfortunately, that comes from the calls that we go on. Right? We have bad calls, we have bad outcomes, we look to be reactionary, and we're always behind the 8 ball. This is one of those times where, as the council, you're looking to the future and to implement something that is a growth program that will go down to keep us all safer in the long run as the citizens that are here and the visitors that we have, from things in our outdoor areas and protecting us from our people that enjoy the outdoor hiking to our outdoor enthusiasts that might have accidents on their UTVs and other items in far-off places. We utilize the helicopters in the fire department for not only reconning areas when we have lost or dislocated or disoriented people, but we use it to bring our medics to the forefront so we can be there and start treatment in an outgoing area to give our member or our citizens the biggest chance for survival. Outside of that, we also have had growth in our community where we've jumped out to the far ends. And even in our major areas where the river bottom runs through, we have a continual uptick in our wildland interface fires, which means that those fires that used to be on the outskirts are burning closer to our areas. In the future, not immediately, but we see the growth into this program is that will allow us to get quicker water onto the fire like Chief Bernard talked about and stop the forward progress of those fires into some of our outlying areas. And even as we've seen in the south part of our city and the middle of our city, when those areas burn within our river bottom system that is there that we've grown into. And outside of that, in those really tricky situations that we all see on those television shows that are out there, right, from time to time the calls do come up where we have to use them for a skidded mountain rescue or picking somebody off of that mountain or maybe an extreme water moment where we're getting into play. And that's what we are here supporting you in, is we understand that there's a definite group of cohesion between us and the police department moving forward to put another asset in play that will ultimately help our firefighters and our police officers. With my last time, again, we've had a long-standing relationship with all of you. We understand that you have constituents that you represent, and we fully support what you need to say and vote on, but we hope that you will consider yes on this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Norm Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council and distinguished members up here tonight with this presentation. It was a very good presentation. I have to agree with a lot of things Mr. Clare said. By the way, I am the representative of the Peoria Police Officers Association, for those that don't know that. And as a representative of those officers, I think it's paramount that I give my opinion on this because I do represent those officers, and officer safety is a big aspect of this. It's been shared here tonight by many of the experts have spoken about the force multiplier for the ground units, whether it's fire or police. I think the distinct advantage that aviation gives to us is the fact that it is that force multiplier. It can respond quickly, much faster, as was noted here, than our ground units. Missing persons, members of the community that we serve and protect, getting to those members of the community at the earliest stages of those reporting of the missing elderly or children is critical. I've been on numerous incidents over the years where having an air unit would have been a game changer. Speaking of the frustration of getting air units, as a police officer, patrol officer for many years in this city, I can tell you there's nothing more frustrating than requesting an air unit and not having one available to you, especially in those incidents where we're trying to help the public. Again, that's why we serve, is to protect the public and the preservation of life. That's the critical thing here. Even when it comes to pursuits, they don't happen very often, as the chief pointed out, because they are a very high risk, high liability incident that's occurring. But when you have a fleeing felon who's leaving the scene of a murder or something very important to catch this bad guy, having an air unit in the air so that units can back off to make it a safer transition for an air unit to do surveillance from a distance, that gives us time to get our unmarked units into that area and now use other tools that we have available to subdue these individuals. That's the critical thing, keeping it safe out there for our public. And I respectfully would ask for you to please support this, because our officers and our firemen out there, we need this type of asset moving forward. The growth of the city is continuous. Every time I come to a council meeting, I hear about new projects, new expansion. There's more and more people using our desert areas for recreation every year. I see it. I go out in the desert. I see all the people out there. There's sometimes accidents out there which is beyond our capability with our vehicles to get to. Having that air unit to respond, to provide that medical aid in that critical phases, somebody injured severely, is very important. You can't put a price tag on that. So I do respectfully ask for your support on this tonight, and thank you very much for my time, or for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Finn.
I can't get enough of this thing tonight, I'm sorry. I just want to make one last comment here. Bill, that was a great statement, Councilmember Patena, great statement that you made. And I was, like Bill, I was very skeptical on this in the very beginning as well. But I did take the opportunity, just want it to be known, I took the opportunity to have some great conversations with staff prior to coming into Travis and the chief, specifically to just let them know, hey, this is what I want to hear on Tuesday in order for me to make an informed decision. These are the things that I am going to ask, that I want to get answers to before I can make an informed decision, which is why I feel as though I can make a decision this evening and not have this pushed down the road. And I want to mention that I think this is a very, very limited opportunity for the state to pay for this helicopter. I really do. If you look at what is happening with the state and their budget, and the fact that I think they went from $1 billion projected surplus to a $400 million deficit they're now projecting, this is a very limited opportunity. I got the questions that I wanted to hear answered for me. I feel comfortable in the responses that I've heard, and I really don't want to pass up the opportunity and be facing a year or two from now trying to pay for the helicopter. I also got out of this presentation, this is not a short-term play. This isn't, hey, let's get this thing up and running in a year, and you're going to see all of these benefits in a year. It's setting us up for 4, 5, 6 years down the road when Peoria continues to expand. And if you think about the square miles, I know I'm going to roll, Mayor, I'm sorry. But if you think about the way that Peoria is set up and the amount of square miles we have, we're very narrow and very, very long. So we have when you talk about square miles, there's a lot of distance between south and the far north and the places that Bill was talking about. Those are areas that it's a lot of miles compared to other cities that are a little bit more square. So I just wanted to make those comments, and I also want to take a moment to shout out to Mr. Hunter Claire. You look great, man. You're moving good. It is so good to see you up and moving, and it's just fantastic, man. It's so good to see you moving again like that, really. And you look good, and I hate to say that, but you look good, man. You look good. That's all I got, Mayor.
Thank you.
And I'm done, I promise.
All right, so I'm going to kind of walk through some of the history of this real quick. So one of the first meetings I was fortunate enough to have was actually with Rudy on this. And I remember, I'm gonna use your statement, this is not a Matchbox car. You don't get to go to the store and pull this off and think that you're gonna have an aviation unit overnight. Am I saying them out the right way? This is a program when we have vision for the city's future and the growth of the city's future and the amount of homes that we're looking at over the next 5, 10, 15, and 20 years. This is not an overnight project. This is something that has to start up and develop, as you saw today, and it takes time, energy, and resilience to be able to have that program. We have the money for a drone program, a very significant drone program that we've already passed in the previous budget. And we did our homework and actually went and met with other departments that had real-time crime centers and actually looked at how they were deploying in the West Valley and across the valley their drone programs. When it comes to an air asset like this, there is not a single air asset in the entire West Valley. I meet with mayors all over the valley. I meet with mayors specifically in the West Valley, and every single mayor, with maybe the exception of 1 or 2, has said that they would love to have an IGA with Peoria once we actually go down this path. And the staff has reiterated that already today. I'm going to kind of go through some of this stuff. So for reference, the city of Mesa, we talked about that, has 3 helicopters, 144. We have 187 square miles. What Mr. Patena said, Councilmember Patena and Councilmember Finn both brought up, and staff has brought up, is if you look at the top of our city and the bottom of our city and the overall swath of land that we have to cover, If we don't go after an asset like this, and you want to actually have proper coverage in those areas as they grow over the next couple of years, we're going to be looking at hundreds of police officers to be able to cover that. Hundreds. We have 24,000 home permits that are unbuilt. 24,000. I actually think it might be 28,000, something like that, give or take, right? So you start to look at that, and you start to look at the overall land mass that we have to cover. Right now, this is not a product that we get to go buy off the shelf, go put it in the air, and automatically have it work for us. It takes time, just like an officer does. An officer goes through, and a firefighter. How long is the fire academy?
Fire Academy is 12 weeks. 12 weeks?
12 weeks. How long does it take to develop a firefighter that you feel is not a red shirt, right? That you're actually putting on an engine and moving? A year?
More than that.
More than a
Go
year.
by them, so I'd say 3 years before they're comfortable to be able to
You just
act
gave
on
me
their
the
own.
perfect example. 3 years for one firefighter. So we're not, we have to look at employees that are in this view, especially when it comes to public safety, as an asset for the city that's actually has to have time, training, and energy. I believe it's, I'm not going to get this right, but I'm going to say it's 800 hours of training, right?
Yeah, it's just a little over 900 hours at the academy.
So I told you I wasn't going to get it right. 900 hours of training to be able to go through that process. You start to look at that. That's just to have a firefighter now go down medic, now go medic EMT, now go different tools that they actually utilize. Same thing for a police officer. So we go through this process and we're investing in people, but if we don't actually give them the capability of tools to be able to do their job and keep them safe, it's not just a police car, it's not just buying a gun and putting it on any citizen, it's not going and saying, somebody's gone through the Citizens Fire Academy and we're just gonna go put them on a fire truck. It does not work that way, right? We take time, energy to put into training and evaluating an individual when we're doing that, and we have to do the same thing when it comes to a piece of equipment. Some seem to be interested and focus on the numbers. In terms of response of emergencies, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people in here, seconds matter. If you're on the other end of that, seconds matter. If we're trying to keep an officer safe, and I'm going to give an example. We had 3 officer-involved shootings that were suicide by cop over the last 2 years. I would probably have had more than that, but I know of 3 that are specific. All 3 of them, we could have lost an officer. Now, I ask every single citizen that's watching this or in this room, and specifically on the dais, how much would you pay for one life? I'd pay more than $1 million a year. I'd pay anything because I want that officer or that firefighter to come home to their family. To me, that's what it's worth. Now, that's my life's blood. That's what I do on a daily basis, right? That's my entire career has been trying to keep people safe. How much would you do and how much would you spend, how much would you give up to be able to keep your son or your daughter safe or your wife safe or your brother safe, any family member? What about a best friend? How much would you spend? So when I look at assets like this, my job is to make sure that these gentlemen and all city staff, we bring people home. It doesn't matter if it's AFSCME members driving one of our vehicles. The amount of training that our AFSCME members go through when it comes to making sure that if they're working on electrical circuits or they're working on trucks, they're driving on the street. We put all this time and attention into 1 or 2 things, but when we look at something like this, we ignore it. And it shouldn't be ignored. Our future is important. And our future of our police officers and our firefighters are important. Our futures of our citizens are important. So with that, I ask for a motion to pass 27R.
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second.
Please vote. And it passes 4-2. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.